どこがいいんだよ。こんなガキ。お前は最後まで
領域展開無料空襲
サトルは久しいね。
The white-haired prince of anime, the character that tons of people glaze, Gojo Satoru. Gojo is one of the most popular anime characters nowadays, and the way he's gained this popularity isn't so shocking. He's handsome, he's strong, he's cocky, he's every woman and man's dream partner, and my goat. That's why God, he's coming back, right? He's not dead, is he? A glorious king. Nah, I'm just joking. Sukuna's my glorious king, and I wouldn't have it any other way. But besides that, besides all the cool things about Gojo, there lies a character that's a lot deeper than, surprisingly, a lot of people don't see. There lies a character that struggles with his identity in the Jujutsu world, especially when it comes to his strength and power. And that character is obviously this man. So I'm gonna show you why Gojo is a lot deeper than many people realize. But before I do, as usual, when it comes to this YouTube thing, if you do end up enjoying this video, give it a like and subscribe. And by the end of this video, I'd love to hear what y'all have to say in the comments. Anyway, let's not waste any more time and get into it. From the very start, Gojo was always seen as the strongest, even from birth, as his birth literally caused the balance of power in the Jujutsu world to be altered. Kurt Spears now had to be born to be able to match his level of power in order to maintain that balance the world had kept for so long. This idea of Gojo being born a god is a key aspect of his character moving forward, which I will explain further soon. Then we get to hidden inventory, or Gojo's past arc as some like to call it. Before the whole Toji incident, Gojo saw himself and Geto as the strongest. You put them on any mission and they'll get it done. It's at this point in time that shows the contrast between Gojo and Geto's ideas of strength and power. Gojo views strength as everything and wonders why the weak even exist, and Geto believes that strength should be used to protect the weak, fulfilling his role as a sorcerer. Gojo's mentality on strength makes sense to him, as he was literally born a god, and especially the fact that the Jujutsu world prides itself on the strong, which causes him to view the weak as nothing but pests that need babying from strong persons like him, because without the strong, the weak wouldn't exist. And with that in mind, it makes his first fight with Toji a lot more interesting. He's fighting someone that's gone against the Jujutsu world, something Gojo takes pride in, and proceeds to be brutally humbled by the fact that a monkey such as Toji, a non-sorcerer, can stand up to a godlike being in the form of Gojo. Then, after the Toji incident and Gojo confronts Geto in front of the KFC building, Geto asks Gojo that question.
君は五条悟だから最強なのか、最強だから五条悟なのか。
This one question, this one piece of dialogue, is the start of Gojo's character arc that has come to haunt Gojo as he tries to understand and answer that question. And after that, Geto leaves the Jujutsu world, leaving Gojo as the only person that can claim the title of the strongest. And this visibly leaves Gojo saddened, one by the fact that he failed to save his best friend, but two, he was the only person in the world who could understand and see Gojo for more than his strength, since they were both considered the strongest. After hitting inventory, Gojo is recognized worldwide as the strongest in the world. No one can match his level of power, no matter how hard they try, and Gojo knew this. Any opponent that came in his way was immediately humbled, but this also ties into his character in the present day. Since Gojo was only seen as the strongest not just by the Jujutsu Society, but by everyone else, it caused him to believe that his only use in the world is to hone his strength even more, and that results in his loneliness, one of the major themes surrounding his character. He feels lonely that no one is able to understand him, since all they see is nothing but the strongest. They don't see an actual person with thoughts and feelings, only a tool to be used when the situation calls for it, and this is shown in his abilities, mainly through Infinity and his domain. Infinity, in its simplest terms, is an ability that creates a barrier of space between someone or something and Gojo, and the closer you try to reach Gojo, the harder and harder it becomes to touch him, to the point where it's nigh impossible. This shows the loneliness that Gojo feels, that he is surrounded by this barrier that makes him the strongest, but at the same time forces people to not be able to understand him, as they cannot reach for who Gojo truly is as a person, which results in people only viewing him as the strongest. And this show of character is also seen with his domain. Domains are shown as displayed one's true self on their victims, and Gojo's domain allows him to input thousands upon millions of information into his opponent's brain, to the point where their brains are effectively fried. I wouldn't say it's the ability that ties into his character, but rather what he says when his domain is shown for the first time.
全てを与えられると何もできず
When given everything, you can't do anything with it. This is a very ironic statement by Gojo, as he himself was given everything from birth, his strength being the main one, but at the same time, he's unable to do anything with his strength, which I'd say is shown clearly during his time in Shibuya, mainly on floor B5. Fake Geto, or as we know, Kenjaku or Kenny, stated that Gojo is at his peak performance when he's alone, and it makes sense. Physically speaking, Gojo's techniques are very destructive by nature, blue creating a sort of magnetic vortex that sucks in anything, red blowing away anything with incredible power, hollow purple being a destructive ball of energy, and his domain that can fry the brains of anyone, even people who don't have curse energy. So this means that if Gojo were to be fighting alongside somebody, he would risk getting them hurt or killed, basically friendly fire, and also the fact that there were tons of non-sorcerers on floor B5, which hindered most of his abilities, as he obviously didn't want to hurt any of the civilians that were there. And narratively speaking, Gojo is cursed to only work by himself, causing his loneliness, but that curse allows Gojo to be the strongest, sort of like a binding vow. You can become the strongest in the world, but at the cost of no one understanding you and your loneliness. So without that loneliness, he can never be the strongest. And to get back to the point of Gojo being unable to do anything, we have to look to when Gojo saw Geto again in Shibuya. He's shaking to his court that his best friend, that he thought he had killed back in JJK 0, is just here, in front of him as if nothing happened. And in the process of being shaken, Gojo's mind quickly flashes to all the times he spent with his best friend, displaying that Gojo was unable to move on, and still reminisces on the past. This also seemingly reminds Gojo that he failed to save his best friend, and couldn't bring himself to properly dispose of his body when he should have, after he killed him. And now, somebody else is taking over his best friend's body, which means he kinda indirectly caused most of the events in the story after hidden inventory, thanks to Kenny being able to use Geto's body to do his evil schemes. But besides that, Let's take a little detour to Kashimo and Sukuna's conversation before they fight. Sukuna asks Kashimo to enlighten him on if strength is solitude or does the endless search of power require solitude. Sukuna more than likely believes both to be true, since he's a villain that believes the only way to be strong in this world is to live a life of solitude, and to live your life however you want. If you want to kill, kill. If you want to cannibalize, cannibalized. This question also ties really well into Gojo's character. He was born the strongest, and thus was cursed to live a life of solitude and loneliness. And even though that loneliness never existed for those 3 years, it eventually came back, like something Gojo can't escape no matter how hard he tries to. The only time in his life where he was somewhat able to be free of that curse. Now, back on track, let's talk about Gojo's fight with Sukuna, mainly at the end of their fight. In chapter 236, Gojo is in his younger form, and wakes up at the airport with everybody from his inventory. A younger Geto, Nanami, etc. This shows that Gojo sees his youth as the best part of his life, a time where he felt understood, and no one saw him as just the strongest. Just your typical high school dude, especially by Geto, his best friend. He goes on to talk about how Sukuna was insanely strong and wasn't going all out, but also that he understands Sukuna's loneliness, the solitude that comes with unrivaled power. Gojo can relate, and during his fight, he put everything, his all, into trying to make Sukuna understand him for more than just his strength. But due to the curse of being the strongest that Sukuna was afflicted by, Gojo failed to make Sukuna understand him. Or so Gojo thought, as Sukuna did understand Gojo. As we see in chapter 238, Kashimo tells Sukuna that those beneath him never challenged him to curse him, but only to be recognized, to validate who they thought they were, to be understood, and he calls it a form of love. Sukuna responds to this saying that the only reason they, as in the strongest, are loved is because of their strength, and they simply responded to that love in kind. But Sukuna makes it clear that he finds love to be worthless and meaningless, and the thought of needing someone else to fulfill him has never once crossed his mind. This conversation ties really well with Gojo and Sukuna. Gojo wanted to be understood, to be recognized by Sukuna, projecting his love onto Sukuna, and Sukuna responded to this love with death. Gojo loses and is at death's door, believing that he failed to make Sukuna understand him. But right after, Sukuna gives Gojo his highest praise, saying that he will never forget him for as long as he lives. And Gojo even smiles shortly before he dies, and at the same time finally got his answer to Geto's question. He is the strongest because he is Gojo Satoru. Looking back, this answer makes sense. Even though Gojo felt loneliness due to his strength, which resulted in no one understanding him, he didn't want that to be the same for his students. He wanted to foster the new generation into being strong sorcerers together, and no one left out. That was the role he placed on himself. He didn't want his students to feel the loneliness and isolation that he has felt for all of his life, and he worked really hard to achieve that goal, making Megumi into his adopted son and fulfilling Toji's wish, saving Yuta from the higher-ups, putting Yuji into his care so he wouldn't get executed, and many more. That's why he despised and even later killed the higher-ups, as they repressed the idea of togetherness, and that strength and isolation was everything. He wanted to use his strength to help his students become stronger, not individually, but as a team, which ties into one of the story's themes of togetherness and loneliness. You can gain strength through solitude, but it will make you miserable and lonely, as once you reach that pinnacle of strength, no one will understand you, and will only see you for your strength. But as a team, everyone can reach the same heights, if not higher. be able to understand one another, and the curse of isolation will never exist. That's why Gojo's death is so impactful, as he succeeded in doing his role of fostering the next generation and not letting them place that curse of loneliness onto themselves, and finally getting the answer he has sought for so long. The end of his character arc being the question finally answered. Gojo, besides being the strong pretty boy of JJK, is a very deep character, all the way from Hidden Inventory to the Shinjuku Showdown arc, where his character arc comes to an end. He is someone that has always dealt with the curse of being alone, that no one could understand him, and the one time someone does understand him, they're gone. He spends the rest of his life fostering the new generation to become strong together, so they don't bear the curse of loneliness that he has felt for all of his life. And in death, finally has an answer for Geto's question. He is, or was, the strongest because of who he was. His strength didn't define him. Even if other people saw him that way, he defined who he was, not his strength. So, if you did enjoy this video, give it a like and subscribe. And I will catch y'all later. See ya.
まずってな、いろいろとやばいよな。ま、なんとかなるか。